Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, I bet you didn't know that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is an 8-year-old cowherd boy. An 8-year-old cowherd boy. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead sometimes appears as a baby in the lap of his mother Yasoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. It makes sense now what my spiritual master, you get newer and newer insights into just about everything. It's always fresh, always new. But when Srila Prabhupada was asked in Atlanta in the 70s, when he came there to that temple, Prabhupada was always on tour. So he was touring the United States and he came to the Atlanta temple. And one of the disciples, whose room was very crowded, the temple room, was waving a Bhagavatam in the air. It was Prabhupada translating the Bhagavatam. And this person was very expert at selling these books. And he raised the book in the air, caught Prabhupada's attention, said, Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? And he's waving the book in the air, like, that you're distributing my books. No. That's not what Prabhupada said. He was thoughtful and quiet for a minute. And then what he said was, to see that you are loving Krishna. So that's what pleases the spiritual master the most, is to see his students, his followers, his disciples, that they're loving Krishna. They're developing love for Krishna. I mean, that's his mission, isn't it? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. To see that you are loving Krishna. So I was just reading in the Rāsa Leela, the chapter in Krishna book. I'm starting at the beginning, and I happen to be on that chapter of the Rāsa Leela. And there, Prabhupada, he does some clarification that, first of all, in the Rāsa Leela, dancing with all the young girls in the middle of the night, Krishna's 8 years old. Okay? He's 8 years old. Hello? Hare Krishna. So it's not some, lecherous old man or something, I mean, he's 8 years old. And he's dancing with the girls. He's 8 years old. Hare Krishna, Krishna. And they're all children too. They're 10, 12 years old. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So Prabhupada discusses a little bit about how the material mind, materialistic mind, material consciousness, they might see that kind of activity and they get like lusty ideas and they want to imitate Krishna and they want to dance with a lot of girls, But that wasn't what was going on. Krishna wasn't, Prabhupada explains, he's Atmarama. He's completely self-satisfied. He was appearing like that because it's what they wanted. They wanted a conjugal relationship with God. So the Lord arranged it so that they could be there when he appeared as Krishna. And that's how it manifested. I said that they were the gopis that were present 5,000 years ago when Krishna appeared. They actually had been sages and very saintly persons, performing all kinds of austerities, living in the forest when Lord Ramachandra was banished to the forest. And they prayed to Ramachandra that they could have intimate, loving relationship with him. And Lord Ramachandra, that's not the incarnation that can fulfill that. Lord Ramachandra promised them that when he appeared as Krishna, that he would be able to fulfill their desires. And they could enjoy a mood of conjugal love with God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The Prabhupada makes it really clear. It has nothing to do with, sex. There was no sex. Material sex was not part of that. It was not part of it at all. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So when Prabhupada says to see that you are loving Krishna, that's what makes Krishna happy, is to see that the devotees are experiencing love for him. That makes him happy. It's not that he's lusting after. It's not like that. What brings him joy and ecstasy is to see that everyone is loving him. That's his pleasure. That's his pleasure potency. That's how he enjoys, is to see that everyone else is happy. Hare Krishna, and that's who he is. He's the supreme enjoyer, the supreme controller, and the friend of everyone. Hare Krishna, Hare. So when Prabhupada says what makes him happy is to see that you are loving Krishna. Why? Because that makes Krishna happy. And if Krishna's happy, everyone's happy. Because Krishna's like the root of the big tree. He's the root of the tree. You water the root of the tree. All the leaves and branches, they get the mercy. Hare Krishna, Hare. You can see it. I mean, in the formal practice of devotional service, they make an offering, prepare food stuff, make an offering, say the mantras, ring the bells, place it before an image of the Lord, which is not different from the Lord because of the way the science of Bhakti Yoga is. It's all absolute, but it's just acted out on a more external platform. Offer the food, and then Krishna says he accepts it, not necessarily by looking, although that's what everyone says, oh, he sees the food. It's I was just reading again, it's by mantra, by hearing the prayers and the mantras that are recited by the devotee who's making the offering. Krishna can taste the mood of love in that devotee by their prayers. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So he accepts the food offering, and then it's not like he destroys it, it's still there. It's like usually there are some pastimes in Chaitanya Lila where the food actually disappears. But Chaitanya Lila, when Mother Sachi was offering her food to Krishna, Krishna would come there and actually eat it, and it would be gone, even though he was situated in Jagannath Puri. He transcendentally would appear there in Navadvip, and the actual food would be gone off the plate. She couldn't figure it out. She thought maybe an animal came in and ate it or something. Or maybe she forgot to put it on the plate. She couldn't. Why is the food gone? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare. But usually, the food stuff actually remains. It just Krishna relishes the offering, and then it's distributed, and everyone gets, as far as that offering will go. Everybody gets to taste it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, and that makes Krishna happy to see the devotees taking the remnants. Hare Krishna makes the spiritual master happy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. It's not like Krishna's lusting over the cauliflower and the samosas or something. He can hardly wait to, he's lusting over it. No, he says, you offer me with love and devotion, I'll accept. He's Atmarama. He's independent. He's fully self-satisfied. He doesn't need anybody else. He's not needy like that, He's not dependent. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And it makes him happy to see the devotees happy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Anyway, I'm just looking at this because it's a section I'm reading and just kind of reflecting on it. It's always ever fresh, ever new. It looks like this now, but tomorrow it may look like something else. But for now, this is when I look at this is what I see and what I appreciate. So read a little bit more from the description of the Rāsa Dance. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava Pahimam. 8-year-old coward boy. Hare Krishna. Sukadeva Goswami further concludes, this is the 10th canto, summary study of the Bhagavatam. Sukadeva Goswami further concludes that the great sages and devotees who are washed clean of all conditional life can move freely even within the contamination of material nature by keeping Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, within their hearts. In this way, also, they do not become subject to the laws of pleasure and pain in the modes of material nature. How then is it possible for Krishna, who appears in his own internal potency, to be subjected to the laws of karma? So previously it was being discussed how Krishna is not influenced by the material nature. He's fully independent and self-satisfied. He's not subject to the laws of karma. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord clearly says that whenever he appears, he does so by his internal potency. He's not forced to accept a body by the laws of karma like an ordinary living entity. Every other living entity is forced to accept a certain type of body by his previous actions. But when Krishna appears, he always appears in a body and is not forced upon him by the action of his past deeds. His body is a vehicle for his transcendental pleasure, which is enacted by his internal potency. He has no obligation to the laws of karma. The Mayavadi monist must accept a certain type of body, being forced by the laws of nature. Therefore, his claim to be one with Krishna or God is only theoretical. Such persons who claim to be equal with Krishna and indulge in Rāsa Lila create a dangerous situation for the people in general. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is already present as Supersoul within the bodies of the gopis and their husbands. He is the guide of all living entities, as is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. The Supersoul directs the individual soul to act, and the Supersoul is the actor and witness of all action. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is present in everyone's heart, and from him come all action, remembrance, and forgetfulness. He is the original person to be known by Vedic knowledge. He is the author of Vedanta philosophy, and he knows the Vedanta philosophy perfectly well. The so-called Vedantists and Mayavadis cannot understand Krishna as he is. They simply mislead followers by imitating the actions of Krishna in an unauthorized way. Krishna, the Supersoul of everyone, is already within the body of everyone. Therefore, if he sees someone or embraces someone, there's no question of propriety. Some ask that if Krishna is self-sufficient, why should he at all manifest pastimes with the gopis which are disturbing the so-called moralists of the world? The answer is that such activities show special mercy to the fallen, conditioned souls. The gopis are also expansions of his internal energy, but because Krishna wanted to exhibit the Rāsa Lila, they also appeared as ordinary human beings. In the material world, pleasure is ultimately manifested in the sex attraction between man and woman. The man lives simply to be attracted by women, and the woman lives simply to be attracted by men. That is the basic principle of material life. As soon as these attractions are combined, people become more and more implicated in material existence. In order to show them special favor, Krishna exhibited this Rāsa Dance. It is just to captivate the conditioned soul. Since they are very much attracted by sexology, they can enjoy the same life with Krishna and thus become liberated from the material condition. In the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit also explains that the pastimes and activities of Lord Krishna are medicine for the conditioned souls. If they simply hear about Krishna, they become relieved from the material disease. They are addicted to material enjoyment and are accustomed to reading sex literature, but by hearing these transcendental pastimes of Krishna with the gopis, they will be relieved from material contamination. How they should hear and from whom is also explained by Sukadeva Goswami. The difficulty is that the whole world is full of Mayavadis, and when they become professional reciters of Srimad Bhagavatam, and when people without knowing the effect of the Mayavad philosophy hear from such persons, they become confused. Discussion of Rasa Leela among people in general is not recommended because they are affected by the Mayavad philosophy. But if one who is advanced explains, and people hear from him, certainly the hearers will gradually be elevated to the position of Krishna consciousness and liberated from materially contaminated life. Another important point is that all the gopis who danced with Krishna were not in their material bodies. They danced with Krishna in their spiritual bodies. All the husbands thought that their wives were sleeping by their sides. The so-called husbands of the gopis were already enamored by the influence of the external energy of Krishna. So by dint of this very energy, they could not understand that their wives had gone to dance with Krishna. What then is the basis of accusing Krishna of dancing with others' wives? The bodies of the gopis, which were their husbands, were lying in bed, but the spiritual parts and parcels of Krishna were dancing with him. Krishna is the Supreme Person, the whole Spirit, and he danced with the spiritual bodies of the gopis. There is, therefore, no reason to accuse Krishna in any way. After the Rasa dance was over, the night turned into the Brahma Murta, the night of Brahma, a very, very long period, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Brahma Murta takes place about 1.5 hours before sunrise. It is recommended that one should rise from bed at that time, and after finishing daily ablutions, take to spiritual activities by performing Mangalartik and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. This period is very convenient for the execution of spiritual activities. When that auspicious moment arrived, Krishna asked the gopis to leave. Although they were not willing to quit his company, they were very obedient and dear to him. As soon as Krishna asked them to go home, they immediately left and returned home. Sukadeva Goswami concludes this episode of Rasa Leela by pointing out that if a person hears from the right source of the pastimes of Krishna, who is Vishnu himself, and the gopis, who are expansions of his energy, then he will be relieved from the most dangerous type of disease, namely lust. If one actually hears Rasa Leela, he will become completely free from the lusty desire of sex life and elevated to the highest level of spiritual understanding. Generally, Because they hear from Mayavadis, and they themselves are Mayavadis, people become more and more implicated in sex life. The conditioned soul should hear the Rāsa Dance from an authorized spiritual master and be trained by him so that he can understand the whole situation. Thus one can be elevated to the highest standard of spiritual life. Otherwise, one will be implicated. Material lust is a kind of heart disease, and to cure the material heart disease, of the conditioned soul, it is recommended one should hear, but not from the impersonalist rascals. If one hears from the right sources, with right understanding, then his situation will be different. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So, the gopis' bodies were still lying in bed with their husbands, but their spiritual bodies went to be with Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Chaitanya